Hi, everyone. I hope you are doing well tonight. Um, you don't really need anything. I do have a presentation that I'm going to go through, but please feel free to interrupt or to pop questions into the chat. Um, Even just like if you're having thoughts or just a comment, feel free to put that into the chat as we're moving along. I'll make sure that I leave plenty of time for questions, but there's also definitely time for discussion throughout the presentation. So you don't have to wait until the very end if something is coming straight to mind. So let's get started. Are there any questions before I begin, actually? Let's start there. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to set myself up here and hit present. Awesome. All right. So tonight's kind of topic and theme is going to be making your space picture perfect. So I'll start with a question. Do you want your space to look like this? Some of the pictures are kind of blurry because I took them off the internet. And I tagged some people who have done some pictures here. So these are really organized, not necessarily empty, though some of them might look a little emptier than others, but kind of like a clean, clearer space. So that's just going to set our tone for today. So this is the plan. We are going to look at a variety of different things. So we'll start kind of looking at like the social media paradox. And I'm just using that term, but when I say like Instagram ready or even social media in that sense, it could be a magazine, it could be on TV, like The Home Edit or Marie Kondo, if you've seen those shows on Netflix, or even just like a show where they're redesigning the space. So we're going to look at that first, and then we'll look at making your space Instagram ready. And then we'll go into a little bit about the reality of creating that kind of space, like what it entails, what's realistic, what we want to strive for in our spaces. And then, of course, we'll end with embracing your own style and considering your own habits, because that is the most important part when we are trying to get organized. So you can take a moment and you're welcome to share, or you can just kind of think to yourself, what are you most excited to learn today? So just a little bit about, oh,
Yeah, hi, I am. Oh, I don't know if you can see me. Hi, I'm Sharon.
hi.
And hi, yeah, I was browsing through some stuff on the library website and I saw this. And
Mm-hmm.
since I am hopelessly disorganized, I'm like, well, here you go. So I'm just excited to hear,
Okay.
a different perspective. And
Yeah,
thank you.
of course. Thank you for being here. All right, and then I also saw a couple things in the chat, how to maintain a camera-ready presence, being able to find things easily and have a more usable workspace. That's a great one. What else?
Hi, Shannon. This is Elvira.
Hi.
I work full time and have a house. I'm the sole person living there right now. I'm responsible
Mm-hmm.
for it. And I get overwhelmed with all these things that come up. I'm having a big party. I decided to landscape. I started to add a patio. And I'm trying to get my bathrooms done. It's like I'm all over
Mm-hmm.
the place. in
Yep.
research, trying to get people to come here, and it's like
Yep.
overwhelming where I end up not doing much because I'm working on too many things and I can't just,
Mhm.
wait for that one uh, tile and grout guy to call me back, deal with him, and then move on to the plumber and then
Yeah.
the irrigation guy because my grass is dying. I'm overwhelmed. I
Mhm.
don't have
Okay.
much
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to Sharon again. To just say, I'm not really that disorganized. I am overwhelmed.
Yes.
So what she just said, all of that.
Yeah.
I live alone. I have a house. I was a caregiver for my mother for a lot of time. She's very disabled, and yeah, and I'm like just this person who takes in everybody, all the sick and everything, and it's just overwhelming. So just
Yeah.
pulling it all together is the
Yep.
challenge.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think that that is probably the number one thing that I hear is it's just the overwhelming, right? So we have something coming up, it's either an event or maybe even it's like a move, like we know we're going to move at some point, or it's like
Yeah.
within our direct eyesight, like we already know when it's happening. And just the prospect of trying to figure out where to start, what to do, how to get everything done in that small window you have, even if it's not a small window, just like the
Right.
whole process of the whole thing is a lot. Even if you have 3 years, that it's still a lot to do. So before we dive into like super nitty gritty, I do know someone I know has to leave a little bit early. So I have my contact info here. If you have any questions about anything that I talk about, or if you have to hop off early, that's totally fine. And you want to follow up or just kind of check in or have a question, something in particular that you want to chat about, there is my email address. And you can also stalk me if you want on my website at Simplify Space and Soul. That's totally fine. I allow it. But like Z said, I'm a professional organizer, but I kind of got into it just through being organized myself and then looking for a change in the work that I was doing. So that's kind of how I got into this whole path of work. So you're in the right place for our talk today, and you've already shared a little bit, and I hope I answer all of your questions. And if I don't get to all of them, you have a way to find me and to contact me. Um, but you're in the right place if the things that you see online and on TV are really inspiring you to create space in your space. So your spaces don't have to be empty. We live in them, but kind of just creating a little bit, I like to think of it as like breathing room where you can just breathe a little bit more calmer, where you can find a little more peace and calm in your spaces. So you're also in the right place if you want to learn some realistic tools and realistic steps that you can take towards making it happen. And you're ready to understand that you can find the calm even if it doesn't look that signature Instagram picture perfect. Everybody's picture perfect is going to look a little different. And then just remember that we're only here for an hour. So my goal is to just to give you some tools to inspire you, support you, and just share a very little piece of a really big overwhelming process. So you've shared already a little bit about stuff that's overwhelming or you've got something coming up, but is there something that you can think of? And again, you can hop on and share, you can put it in the chat, or you can just think to yourself, is there something that you've seen, and it could be something you've seen like in the media, like online, on TV, on a magazine, or it could be something you've seen in someone else's space that made you say that you want that or that you want to feel like that. Anything by Joanna Gaines. I love it. Shared workspaces, yeah, especially when there's more than one person in the space. Um, and that could be a workspace or a home.
Uh, Shannon, hi, it's Elvira, a friend who's got a small house, but he's extremely organized, is always decluttering, can find
Mhm.
things that are, it's like sickening how organized he is. But he has no pets, no kids. He lives alone.
Uh-huh.
He's retired, so there's a lot of reasons. But he's always been that way, I think, because his mother was like that. But I
Mhm.
admire that. Yet
Yeah.
it's. I don't think I need to get to that level, but I have to
Mhm.
move a little bit more towards that.
Okay, yeah. Tiny house, under the stairs storage. Yeah, that gets really creative. Just presentable. What does presentable mean to you? Is there like a feeling associated with it? Is it a look? What comes up when you think of that word? And it can be anybody.
Just presentable to me means that when people come over, they have a place they can sit without moving
Okay.
stuff off of the couch.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
my desk is not a foot high piled with crap.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um, the floor is walkable.
Mhm.
You can eat on the dining room table.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the places are able to be used for the things that you want to use them for. So it could look like this, but this also, I will say, is not realistically how many clothes most people have. This is just one of those like really pretty pictures that we see online. And I think we can like be inspired by it, but even like you've all already said, like we want to use the spaces that we have for the things that we want to use them for. And so it doesn't have to look like this at all. My closet does not look like this.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to reach the things too.
Yes, that's a
I'm
great
really
point.
tired of having to go
Yes.
get a step ladder to get
Uh,
a hat.
yeah, oh my gosh, I love that point, and I'm actually gonna talk a little bit about, like, how do you figure out what is functional, for you? Because everyone is a little different, right? Like, I'm really tall, so it's okay if something's up high for me, but if you're shorter, you don't wanna have to worry about getting a step stool or about having things really at the top. All right, so we're going to dive into kind of understanding this social media paradox. So I put it in quotation marks, just like I said at the beginning, just because I'm just using that phrase, but I don't necessarily mean that it has to literally be social media. So the phrase and the kind of um, perception that that gives is that it refers to spaces, images, or anything that we see that's really, really aesthetically pleasing, and styled in a way that's really easily shareable. So there's certain visual things that make them really appealing. They look really nice. There's really good lighting. There's not a lot of stuff, just like that closet picture I had a couple slides back. Um, Things have been removed probably from this space. Um, it could be functional, but it also could not be functional. So some of the characteristics are that they're clean and clutter free. There's stylish decorations. There's color coordination. Oop, that is not right. I did not edit this properly. And there's symmetry. It's neater. Maybe there's seasonal decor. And negative space, which basically just means that there's empty space that is being used to create the image that there is more space. It's not like oh, there's something missing from there. It's like used to make the space feel bigger. So people like this because, hold on. I don't know what it is on social media. An organizer put my books in size order. Looks good, but totally useless. Okay, I'm going to pause myself for that because I love that, because I'm sure that we've also seen like color coordinating books on bookshelves. And if you're like me, which you probably aren't, I know authors because I read a lot. So like I know what I'm looking for when I'm going to my bookshelf. So if I'm not looking for the color, I'm looking for the author. So I have to put them in a certain way. I do think that color, like that particular mindset, could be beneficial for maybe like young kids, right? Because then they're understanding where to put things away. But otherwise it's kind of not really a functional tool. But I love that example, but because that's great. Because it looks pretty, right? There's potentially a sense of accomplishment because the space is neater. There's a sense of maybe a little bit more of a coziness. And then the person just feels positive feedback. And this is kind of like, again, looking at that Instagram ready, that picture perfect space. But these are some of the feelings that it can bring up. So what does that actually entail? So the first step is always decluttering. So let's say we were about to dive in and we wanted to make our living room picture perfect. So the first thing that we have to do, and that 99.9% of people are going to have to do, is to declutter. So that's to remove some of the stuff that's in the space. So how do we go about that? These are a really short step-by-step, but there's actually so much more involved in this. So I like to think of it as we're always starting with assessing the space. So we kind of want to look around, see what we have. Maybe we start to already notice things that we don't want anymore, or that we don't need, or that we don't use, or maybe even that we forgot that we had. So kind of just taking an inventory, a visual assessment of the space. I like to make a list, of course. It's not required. You can, I think it kind of helps us see the steps and can potentially help with some of the overwhelm, right? Because when we look at the space as a whole, it's really overwhelming. And though if we start making a list and writing it down, it might be a long list. We have our little pieces and we can start to take them step by step. It can be, question in the chat is what kind of list typed? It can be typed. You can also handwrite it if that works, if that helps it stick more. You can definitely handwrite it. I often type my list. However, when I need to remember, I handwrite it. So the list should be of, here, I'm going to give an example. So I'm in my living room right now. And let's say I wanted to declutter and create a little bit more space. Actually, I have a great example because I just moved some things around because I want to hang a couple of shelves up. So in order for me to hang my shelves up, I had to move everything out of the way that was in front of the wall I wanted to put them on. So my list encompassed clear off, there was a shelf there, clear off shelf, make room on another shelf, and decide what I want to keep. Like, do I want to donate some of this? It was just kind of sitting there. I didn't really use most of it. So decide what I want to keep, bag up those items. Bag up the items I didn't want to keep, and then find a new home for the items I did. And then I needed to make sure the space was clear. And so for me, I would write all of these things down. So I had on my list, clear off shelf. I needed to order new shelves. I had them picked out, so I had order shelf. Move or donate like the stuff that was there. And that even might be broken down more, right? Because we end up with a bag of donations that just stay there. So trying to figure out what's going to help get it out of my space if I don't want it anymore. Does that make sense? So you're making a list of all the little pieces of things that you have to do. And that could be, if you're clearing off a bookshelf, you could literally put clear off the top shelf, clear off the middle shelf, clear off the bottom shelf, to just break up the project into smaller pieces. Am I making sense? Are there questions on that before I keep going? Okay. So before you even started this whole process, you probably already have a goal in mind. Like, for me, my goal was that I wanted to put up like floating shelves and not have a standing shelf. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So it's about figuring out what that goal is, and it might happen after the fact. You might know that you want to make space, but like what your full goal is. Like, is it that you want a place to put your yoga mat? Do you want a place to display your maps or your travel trinkets that you've gotten from traveling? Again, this can come at the very beginning, or it might kind of be more clear as you get into it. So what was shared in the chat was that I think the most daunting thing about decluttering is that it's pretty much a solo job. You can't really delegate it. 100%. It's really hard to delegate because it's your stuff. So the couple of tips I have for that is I like to think of stuff at like creating parameters. Oops. So when I say creating a parameter, I mean, let's say you're in an office or your office and you have like a ton of mail, or just piles of paper of old bills or just like old paperwork. A parameter would be anything older than 6 years is an automatic toss. It could also be the opposite, where I only keep it if it's a birth certificate. I mean, obviously you're going to keep that, but like that's kind of like the parameter, right? So that way you might actually be able to bring a friend in to help, because you're like, okay, these are my rules. I think a parameter says rules. Or you're looking for something. This is what I'm looking for. Let's go through it and see if we can find it. So that kind of helps guide your work, whether you're doing it with someone or if you're doing it yourself. Because if you've tried to declutter before, you know that you'll come across things and be like, oh, I'm totally going to get rid of stuff like this. But then you'll come across it and be like, actually, I'm not sure. I'm going to hold on to this for a little bit longer. So kind of setting those rules for yourself can be really helpful. And something that I would also recommend that I do find is helpful, because I do this with clients, but I've also done this with friends, is to just have a buddy with you, even if they're not doing the stuff, if they're not going through it. Because then they're just kind of there to just be a support. And oops. Just trying to find, there we go, the chat. To be a support and to even just be a listening ear, because sometimes you're coming across things that might be sentimental or there's a story attached to it. It does take forever. Going through our stuff is very difficult, even if we don't think it's going to be that challenging. Because most of us are going to actually want to look at everything. We're not just gonna mindlessly like swipe the desk clean and throw it in the garbage. We're gonna go through each item that is there. So it's gonna take a while. So my other tip actually is small chunks may seem like it's taking even longer, but it can actually help you progress more. Because think about it, if you wake up on a Saturday morning and say, I'm gonna work from 8 to 5 and I'm gonna clean out this whole room, probably by 10, maybe earlier, you're exhausted. It's a very, very exhausting process. Even as an organizer, I have for moves, but I don't particularly want to be there all day. I want to work with you for a few hours. We make a lot of progress, and then I come back again. Because it's a lot. It's really emotional. It can be really physical. 15 minutes is better than 0 minutes. Exactly. Just think a little bit of progress. Again, it's going to feel like it takes longer, but it's going to get you so much further. So when you're in this decluttering, I like to think of like 4 bins, and they don't have to be actual bins. I would recommend having really clear identified spots in the space that you're working, but you're definitely going to have a trash bag. You're definitely going to have a donate bag. You'll definitely have a keep spot. And depending on where you are, you may have a recycle space as well. And so that way you know that as you touch each thing, it needs to go into one of these spaces. So it minimizes some of those decisions about, okay, well, I don't want this, but what do I do with it? To just keep moving the process along, pick one spot. Like, okay, so if I'm going to donate this shelf, it's just going to go in my donate pile, and I will come back to it later once I've identified everything I want to donate. So when you're trying to make these decisions, my best tip is to always go with your gut. Like, what is that initial instinct that comes up when you pick up your item? I'm obviously not going to throw my phone out, but like if I pick up my phone, and my gut is like, oh, I don't want this anymore. That's my gut. Try to really listen to that, and come to the next thing. There's definitely things that are going to be more challenging to kind of go back and forth on, but try to come back to what that first instinct is and ask yourself if that feels like the right one. So that was like not that long talking about decluttering. We could literally talk about decluttering for 12 hours. And we could declutter at the same time while we talk about it. But before I move into the very next thing, questions. I know we had some shares. Anything that's coming to mind as we think about the decluttering process?
Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
I have a whole little bedroom that's not used for anything but just
Yep.
storage of stuff that my kids don't want in their places where they live, and
Yep.
papers from 7 years, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. It's even hard to walk in the room. It's a small nursery. Do you
Yes.
suggest somehow organizing the junk before you go through it, or just start at one place and work your way to a little corner, or decide to do this 12-inch area? It's like I really don't know how to most effectively go through
Uh-huh.
the papers. And if I find some insurance papers, do I look for other insurance papers and then file them all in a cabinet, or do I just deal with everything that's right in front of me? Or do I try to organize it between, well, I think this is household stuff, and not just papers, but just I have
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pillows, and cloth, I got everything. My daughter lives in
Mhm.
San Juan. She comes home, leaves stuff in the room. I have no, this is
Yeah.
like the unpaid storage bin.
It's a storage unit. Yep. Um, I especially if the entire room feels like a storage unit, um, one spot. And it can even be like, I don't know if like you could even if you have an empty box or something, just throw a bunch of stuff in the box and then like go sit on your couch and go through it. And then, kind of do it piece by piece. Um, the only time I would think that you like want to start to put like with like, so like all the insurance papers together is if you are like unpacking or trying to organize all your insurance papers and find one place for them. Um so especially if this space feels overwhelming, I would do one little piece at a time.
Okay. So like I have a box of pictures that I'm not using, but they're framed. There might be some other
Mm,
pictures loose in the room. I'm not gonna, when I'm doing the pictures, say, let me go look for all the pictures so I can
no,
deal with
yeah,
it all at once. That takes time to do that.
that takes a lot of time. So I would say just like you could, as you're starting to clear space in the room, then you can like create a spot for pictures, create a spot for papers, and then I'm sure you're gonna have to go back to it at some point. But for that first push through, um, a little pieces at a time is gonna take you so much further.
Okay. What I do is I take a chunk of papers and go through them on the train to work. And
Mm-hmm.
I make two piles. This is for garbage and this is for keep.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I like to even think of, especially if it's papers, or even just anything, honestly, like if you like to watch TV at night, like you could set a timer for 15 minutes, sit down and watch TV and go through it while you're doing that.
Yes.
Or listen to an audiobook, or a podcast, or just music that you really enjoy. Um, yeah, and so that actually brings me really great to the question that Z just put in the chat, that some strategies to stay motivated when you get overwhelmed. Um, Try to combine it with something that you like. So, like listening to music or watching TV or a movie. Um, and setting timers, because then it's not so overwhelming. Because, like I said a few minutes ago, you're not trying to do the whole day. You have just like, okay, let me just get through 15 minutes of this. Um, and if you're feeling good, you do another 15 minutes. If you're feeling good, do another 15 minutes. But you can stop at any point, right? Um, what else can help with motivation? Um, if you're good at accountability, like if you like having like an accountability partner, like maybe you tell someone that you're starting, and that you hope to get through this corner of the room today, um, and then share that you got through that corner when you're done. And maybe they're checking in on you throughout the day and being like, "Oh, hey, how's it going over there?" Or maybe they're cleaning their place at the same time. Um,
I,
yeah, yeah, go for it.
yeah, actually, I was going to kind of propose that since you're a professional organizer, would you be open to, like, say, organizing a little group so that we could kind of like do a Zoom call and we pay you so that you get paid, and then it's not, we're not
Yeah, yeah,
paying, $100 per person an hour for the organizer to sit there and tell us what box to put it in.
Mhm.
Because I mean, after, to me, that's kind of a disincentive because organizers are expensive, and that
Yes, they
initial,
are. Yeah.
you're going through clutter. It's throwing out, basically.
Mhm.
Um, at this point, I'm trying to hire somebody to help me do a garage clean out because
Yeah.
it's too much for me. But it would be helpful, if we could do it as a group thing and we can all pay
Mhm.
25 or $30 an hour. So you would get your fee and then some, and then we could have that motivation of,
Mhm.
of doing it, with a partner, because
Mhm.
I think a lot of this is, for me, myself, I don't have a partner. And that's
Yeah.
a big problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I've actually played with that idea before to do like group stuff like that, where I see it as like a body doubling technique where with you and I'm there to support you and answer questions. But you guys are doing the work. And I love that because it is your stuff, right? Like when I'm in person with somebody, I'm never telling people you have to throw this out, it's garbage. I would never say that because I would never want anyone to say that to me about my stuff. So I'm there to just encourage and ask questions, and share kind of tips and tools or mindsets about things that have helped. Um, and then sometimes it also helps to think about what your end goal is, right? So if your goal is to feel calmer in your space, that could be a motivator as well. Yeah, so I'm sure that there's more. There's so many things that you can think of, and I will say too that and I say this if I teach yoga too, if you some of you have taken my class, I say this might be work really well today, but it might not work tomorrow. So some things that are going to help you with your motivation today are not going to help you with your motivation tomorrow, and that's okay. Um, some days we're more tired, we're busier than others, and it's harder to keep pushing forward. So it's about finding what's going to work today to make those steps that you want.
Um, yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's not just about motivation, it's about anxiety. I mean,
Mhm.
it's that anxiety. I can't get past that anxiety.
Yeah.
So having someone or a group to kind of be in that space and we're all doing it together,
Yep.
and that helps with the
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. My house is like an older house, like
Mhm.
early 1960s, and
Yeah.
they did not have the type of closet space, the type
Yes.
of organized space that
Yes.
we have today. So
Yep.
I am terrible with that. And I
Yeah.
think that the core of what happened and why it got so out of hand is because
Mhm.
the space is just not well designed for
Yes.
our needs today. So
Yeah.
for a professional organizer, I
Mhm.
need a professional organizer,
Mhm.
somebody who really is good with resetting up the spaces,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just getting rid of the clutter, that's something that, like you're saying, I got to do that and get through it. And
Uh-huh.
so that's kind of where,
Yeah.
for me, I really need the services of an organizer, and where I kind of just need, somebody in that space with me to help
Mm-hmm.
me with the stress.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do sometimes it's helpful to just have someone who doesn't live in the space, right? So that way there's like you want to like it's a non-judgmental person, someone who has no stake in the space or how it turns out, to just kind of give that bird's eye view of what's going on. Um, yeah, and old houses are not made at all for anything. And I've organized some places in New York City before too, and those are tiny, tiny. So there's a lot of creativity sometimes and Tetris skills that have to come with it. Um, all right, so just minding the time. So kind of thinking about finding your balance. Um, so let's imagine that we've kind of done that decluttering part. And I know that it was not actually that fast, that we wish it was. Um, but these are things that I like to start to bring to mind early because then as we're doing that clear out space, we can start to kind of think about what it could look like. So creating functionality is really, really important. So thinking about what do you use the space for? Maybe it's not its current use, but it's a desired use. Um, like few years ago, my friend was having a baby. She was turning her office into the nursery. She now had to figure out how to make that office space work somewhere else so that way it could be the baby's nursery. So kind of thinking things like that. It doesn't have to be obviously that exact situation. And then thinking about what you need when you're in that space and when you're actively using that space. Um, so if you think about like a kitchen, you want to have your pots and spoons and everything near the oven. So that way, or the stovetop. So that way, when you're cooking, it's right there and easier to reach. And then it's always about adding your touch. So once you kind of have that functional piece, what makes it feel like home to you? I love having books. So all of my rooms, literally all of my rooms have books in them, because books make me happy and I like to have them. Is it pictures? Is it like little trinkets, like I said before, like maybe like from traveling or photos that you took, like if you see the pictures behind me, these are all photos that I took of my traveling. So I like to have that up on my wall. So kind of things like that, thinking about what can make it really yours and feel like your space and not like you're in a showroom. And this is a decluttering and organizing and functional tip. If you find something as you're organizing the space that doesn't belong in the space. So I'm in my bedroom and I find a fork. I don't know why. Maybe I had a snack. um, but that obviously doesn't belong there. But I don't want to go to the kitchen because then I'm going to get distracted by my kitchen. So I'm going to just put it aside and then keep working in my room. And then later I will take that pile of stuff that doesn't belong there and put it where it belongs. But I just don't want to get pulled out of the space that I'm currently in. All right. So really the reality of trying to create these Instagram ready spaces is it really comes down to a stage space versus a real life lived in space. There's a lot of preparation involved in a stage space. Things have most likely been moved or rearranged. Their priority and the emphasis is on how it looks as opposed to how it how it works for like its purpose, how it serves a purpose. And the reality is that a lived-in space is not going to be picture perfect because you're living in it. You want to set things up so that they can be used, they're practical, things that are accommodating, things that you do every day. And everybody always creates mess. That's just what happens throughout our day. So just remembering that there's going to be personal items and daily messes that just happen as a part of our lives. So in order to maintain that picture perfect look, there needs to be really, really consistent effort to keep the space clean and clutter free. And a person might daily be dusting, tidying up, and organizing items. So now, while I do think that regular maintenance is a key piece of staying organized, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have time to dust every day. I like will tidy up at the end of my day, right, and put things away. But I'm not constantly dusting and cleaning everything right after I use them. And then the other part of kind of maintaining that picture perfect space is that there's like periodic refreshes. So they're updating things to stay with the season or to stay up to date on what is trendy, rearranging furniture constantly. Again, not super realistic. I don't know about you guys, but once I kind of set up my furniture, that's kind of where it's gonna stay. I don't have a big like funds to just continuously update and buy new things to keep the space in what's trending now. So coming back to that reminder that you live in your space, we have a limited amount of time, we have a limited amount of space, a limited amount of funds. So trying to create the best space that we can and the most homey space that we can for ourselves is so much more important. And of course, the pictures that people post, even if they're on Instagram, they set it up for a photo shoot. Not for someone to live in on a daily basis. So it's really about just embracing your own style and habits. So always prioritize your preferences over what is currently popular. So, for example, think about your daily activities. What do you do most often in each space? And then figure out what are the key functions that you want that room to serve. So I'm using the example here of my living room, my couch area in particular, which I happen to be on at the moment. I often work from my couch because I'm just more comfortable. So I need to have a computer charger. So I have a computer charger. My dog, she's not next to me right now, surprisingly, but she's usually next to me on the couch, and she likes to wrap herself up in blankets. So I need to have a blanket on the couch for her. I always have water, so I need a table to put my water on. And I like to have snacks. So I have a little thing of snacks right next to me on my table. So this is what I need in my couch area to make it functional for what I want to use it for. And of course, I have the TV in front of me, and everything I need nearby. So the things that I want to be able to reach and use while I sit here, I don't have to get up to get them. If I want something else, then of course I have to get up and get them. but these are the primary things that I need near me. So think about a space that you have. And let's think about what you need in that space to make it functional for you. And it doesn't have to be a full room, like I did my couch. So kind of think in that same way. Like, what's something in your home that you want to make sure you have a space for and you want to make it more functional? What are those things that you need in that space? And you can think to yourself, you can share in the chat, you're welcome to unmute.
Well,
Ooh,
I kind of,
yeah.
yeah, I've kind of, well, I'm looking at your couch, and I'm also planning to redecorate and renovations, all this stuff. But
Mhm,
first, I've got to declutter and
mhm,
organize, set
mhm,
up organized spaces. But
mhm.
for the living room, what I need in the space, of course, is a couch,
Yep.
some places for, um, friends to come over and sit.
Okay, great. So
Um,
more seating.
right.
Mhm.
Um, a TV, but something
Yeah.
that's away. And then
Okay.
I just really want things in the space to make it um, the homey, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
And so in terms of plants, um,
Mhm.
colors,
Mhm.
uh, and fireplace, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I want in the living room, and
Okay.
a table. I guess everybody has a little sofa table or
Mhm.
coffee table.
Yep.
But I
Yeah.
don't really like coffee tables, but I guess I need some kind of tables in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can like think about like what purpose do you want the coffee table to serve? Like, do you want people to be able to put a drink down? Do you want to put snacks on it? And you might be able to like, get like foldable tables instead. So that way they can be put away when you're not using them. So you can think about like that's a preference, right? Like, is there
Mm.
something easier that we can get creative about? Um,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
kind of going along with some kind of, you know, um, the end table that you can put together as a
Yep.
coffee table if need
Yep.
be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tables to me are very functional, even though I
Yes.
want them attractive. But
Yep.
whatever the form
Yep.
is. And can I
Yeah.
just ask you a question?
Of course.
What color is your couch? Is that beige or gray or greige?
It's brown.
It's brown.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it doesn't have gray undertones.
Nope.
Maybe it's the lighting.
It might be the lighting. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I love this. I changed the whole bedroom into an office space during COVID. I'm sure like 75% of the population had to figure out where their office was when COVID happened, but I love that. I actually completed a closet. I needed space for my crafts. I love crafts. But I needed a space for bathroom item overflow. Yeah. So I fit the inside of the closet with shelving for the crafts. I love it. An over the door organizer. I love that. So that is like thinking creatively, right? So if you have an over the door organizer, you can utilize the space even more because you're thinking up, instead of just what is directly in front of you. I love that. Um, I would like to be able to create art in my former office. My supplies should be within reach. My couch should provide a place to sit and a place for your computer and writing. That's great. Yeah. And then I love that you said that. So like think about if you're sitting, what do you want in reach? And like what just needs to be more easily accessible in that space, but doesn't necessarily have to be within arm's reach. Yeah, I love that. So you're thinking functional and creative with the spaces. So we're always kind of prioritizing that practicality and also thinking about comfort. Been working on this for several years. It's a process. Um, but you know your end goal. So making little baby steps towards that goal. Um, and it's not always the easiest thing to like figure out what works. I know I often will like have a picture in my mind of exactly what I want. This happens a lot when I'm organizing stuff. But like it doesn't exist. So I have to figure out, okay, well, how can I still achieve that same thing and utilize the space well without having that actual item that my brain is picturing. So there's a lot of creativity and thought involved. All right, we're getting towards the end here. So just, I think I'm just on the last couple slides here. Yes, beautiful. So just kind of like a final piece. So you want to make sure that however you have the furniture, you can easily move around it. You're not tripping over things to get to it. Make sure that it supports the activities you want to do in this space. So I'll teach yoga from my living room. So I need to make sure that there's certain parts of my living room that I can lay out my yoga mat. And I have to move my coffee table, but it's like just a push. So it's not like a big to do when I teach classes from the living room. And then it could be storage solutions that keep things you need within reach. So like, you know, I have this thing on my couch that is like just like a little couch like organizer is just over the arm. I don't know if you can see it, but I have like my remotes in here. And I can keep stuff away from my dog's mouth by putting it in there. She doesn't chew as much as she used to, but sometimes. Yeah, and then just adding that personal touch. So remembering to set realistic expectations. It is not always going to look perfect, and that is totally fine because you live there. And then just thinking about your daily routines. So just the last little piece. Sometimes when I'm thinking about or working with somebody and it's a question of, oh, where should I keep this? Like the remote. Where should I keep the remote? Well, where do you use the remote? Probably near the TV. So are you sitting close to the TV or are you sitting on the couch? If you're sitting on the couch, the remote, in my head, I think should be on the couch and not in front of the TV. So, or if you're like putting papers away and you have a bunch of medical paperwork, if you're going to go to look for it, what are you going to look for? Is it medical? Is it health? Is it your doctor's name? Is it the doctor's office name? Is it the injury that you're looking for, or that you're dealing with that the paperwork is on? So whatever makes sense that you're going to look for it, those are the words and the spaces you should use and put them. Frequently used items in easily accessible places. So if it's something that you're using on a regular basis, it shouldn't be all the way on the top shelf. Try to bring it lower. And because it is helpful to use the vertical space, like you can put stuff up there, but try to put the stuff up there that you're not gonna use a lot. So if I think about your kitchen, if you have like a Christmas dish set, that should go towards the top because you're really only gonna pull that out around Christmas unless you use it year round, which is totally fine. It's Christmas in July. Um, but what do you use more frequently? That should be an easy reach, and the things that you use less frequently can be a little bit further out of the reach because it's a little bit more of a pain to get. Um, I like to create visual cues to create boundaries. My living room and dining room are the same room. So I'm on my couch here and I have a chair on the side of me that kind of blocks off my living room and creates a living room space. And so my dining room is its own space. So little things like that can kind of help create that separation visually and also for yourself. And it's a constant game of trial and error. You are constantly seeing if it's working, adjusting, discarding, moving things around. But make it simple so that you can keep up with it. And that's it. And we're 2 minutes over, but that's okay. This is my contact information, but I can put it in the chat as well. But are there any final comments or questions? One product that I swear by, oh my goodness, I love using, and now I'm gonna have to Google it and pull it up so I can actually show you. Drawer dividers. So the reason why I like them is because sometimes it's really hard to find the right bin that's gonna fit your exact space. And I'm just pulling up Google. I like things like this because they're like adjustable to your space. So it doesn't matter if you get a new dresser or a new kitchen, um, it always works. So like things that have these like expandable, and I use them a lot in my bedroom, but I've also used them in my office, like in those drawers. I haven't really used them in the kitchen, but that's a possibility. I've used them for clients in the kitchen. But they're perfect because they create the visual cue, the visual divider, but still maximizing the space. Just dropping things in the chat. And I love Green Drop. So she put a link to Green Drop, which is a donation drop off in Westchester, and I use them all the time. They're fantastic. They will do pickups. I think there might be like you have to have a certain amount or something. I don't remember exactly. But they have a location that you can drop off in North White Plains, and I know they have another one, but I don't know where. There's tons of resources in Westchester though. And I have a spot on my website as well that has some local resources and like more national resources as well. Not found a place that will take chairs like kitchen chairs.
No, two of them are these roll around task chairs.
Okay, like desk chairs. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, one of them is an embroidered chair for a dining room or kitchen, and the other is a brand new desk chair still in the box.
Oh. Oh, it's not put together.
Well, I put it together,
Oh, okay.
but it was way too big for me.
Gotcha. Okay. I feel like I've donated chairs to Green Drop before. Goodwill will pretty much take everything. The Vietnam vets do they kind of slowed down a little bit during COVID, so I would have to look that up again. But they would do pickups. There's also the Breast Cancer Foundation does home pickups. They're really great. And I would think that they would take the chair because as long as if they ever do like a home pickup, as long as one person can carry it, they'll usually take it.
Yeah, there used to be a place, I think
Yeah.
it was Lupus Foundation, but they will no longer take furniture. Goodwill
Okay.
has a notice saying it will not take furniture, so does Veterans.
Okay, yeah. I know veterans started to get got more challenging after COVID. Let's see. It doesn't say the breast cancer doesn't say that it says they cannot accept furniture. Okay, now I want to find a place for you for that chair. Um,
Oh yeah, free cycle.
oh
They
yeah.
may.
I know a lot has changed since COVID. It's really unfortunate. I love those door pickups because it's so convenient and it's so easy and you don't have to stress about it. They'll just come and get it. Um, yeah, and then Elvira said that the Green Drop, there's 3 different charities and you can tell them which one you want. So I think it's like Purple Heart, Red Cross, and I can't remember the other one. But you can tell them which one you want. You can also do if you aren't trying to sell it and you don't care about like making money on it, like there's a group called Buy Nothing on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, they may take it. That's a good idea.
And they're like community groups, so they're people who are local to you. So you'll have to find like your area, and then you just post it, and and I mean, people want free stuff all the time. So, and it's great because I'm sure a lot of people move over the summer, so now is a great time. But that's always a great way to get rid of things as well and know that they're going to a place that will be used. Yeah,
Yeah,
Furniture Chair House is a great resource. That's on this Westchester website. They're very limited in what they'll take, so you always it's right next to the Westchester Airport, so you always have to look at what they're accepting. If they're having too much of one item, they'll stop accepting that item until that gets out.